Hey, welcome here to another episode of Disgruntled. Of course, if you don't know, my name is Richard, and I'm here all the time. And so, if you've watched before, you've seen me. Usually you see Jason. However, he wasn't available today, and so we will pick him up the next time around, no doubt about it. Today's discussion is really kind of short and sweet. We are now in the wake of Memorial Day. And with that being said, I hope that everyone was able to take a moment. Take a moment and just give thanks and some remembrance and just have a humble moment in remembrance of the members of our military who are not with us any longer. In fact, that is the purpose of Memorial Day. And so I hope that you were able to do that and that you enjoyed your weekend. But obviously that we do the right thing and remember. And so in the wake of Memorial Day, I thought that I would talk to you all about a recent road trip that I went on. As you know, I am a pretty avid motorcycle rider. At least in my mind, I am. I'm sure that there's a lot of folks out there who are more hardcore of a rider than I am. But I love it. Really enjoy it. And so myself and a few other buddies took off this last weekend just to see the countryside, get a VRBO, stay the night, have just a little guy's weekend, and do some riding and just see what the road had to offer us. And more than one time on our journey, I found myself thinking about how amazing the scenery was, how amazing small town people are. You know, you stop and get fuel, stop and grab something to eat. We, for whatever reason, seem to always find and enjoy ourselves at the small town, middle of nowhere diner or cafe or what have you. And they're always very pleasant. The food is always good for the most part. And then the other patrons that you meet in these places that are the locals are very pleasant as well. And so it was a great experience just to roam, you know, the Midwest a little bit, meet some new people, see some things that you haven't seen before. We stopped on the south shore of Lake Superior and kind of just took it all in for a few minutes. And this is not the first time that this has happened to me. I've had these thoughts other times, but it really kind of came to a culmination for me this last week. And maybe it was the fact that it was Memorial Day weekend, and I find myself thinking about the people we've lost, the people that we've lost that we don't know their names, like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier and things like that, of course. And then, you know, when you're spending a few hours on your bike, you got some tunes, kind of just lean back and concentrate on the road, but also take in the things around you. For example, we were riding down the road, and one of the dudes I was riding with didn't see that there was some roadkill in the road. But just as we were approaching that section of road, a bald eagle had left the tree, and it seemed from my angle that he was swooping down to grab something to eat. He didn't account for a bunch of hunyucks on motorcycles to come speeding through. But it was a pretty amazing sight to watch. This thing was spread, and his wings spread and he was swooping down. And then when he saw us coming, he kind of leveled out, and he was 8 feet above our heads as we kept going down the road, and he kind of went back up. But it was just an awesome, awesome sight, and this thing was a monster. And so experiences like that kind of just get you to think a little bit. I've had similar experiences at the Grand Canyon. I had a very, very similar experience at Glacier National Park. We did, my wife and I and our kids, we did the Road to the Sun at Glacier, and I got to admit to you, it was a pretty amazing experience. You know, you get to the top of this road, which is in the top of the mountains, the Glacier National Park, which is the Rocky Mountains, if I'm not mistaken. And you're at the top. I mean, there, of course, is higher, but not much. And you get out of your car and you turn around and you kind of just look at the view, and it's like, it's overwhelming. And the time in which we were there, and I knew nothing about it at the time, was golden hour. The sun was beginning to set. The snow and clouds were kind of draping over the side of the mountain as the wind blew them over, and there was a cool breeze, and just the whole thing, man, the whole experience, it just kind of made you think, this is why I did it. It's a huge reason as to why I chose to don a uniform and defend this country. And we don't often talk about those things. You know, the more common answer is, well, you know, I joined the military because of 9/11. I was pissed off. And we were going to take the fight to the people that were responsible, which I completely understand and I do not disagree with. And maybe the reason as to why you joined, or why I joined, was not that, although at the time of my joining the military, I did have experiences outside of home. I'd been to Montana plenty of times, camping for a couple weeks here and there, fly fishing and being up in the mountains and seeing the sights. Yellowstone National Forest, or National Park rather, the Gallatin National Forest, all that stuff. But I don't think that you really appreciate it when you're, 16, 17, 18 years old, like you can as a middle-aged adult. And so I guess the thought is that having these experiences now, again, later on in life, really makes a person proud and glad that they chose to fight for this place. All these views and all these places and all these small towns and all these things to do. Now, it doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, it costs some, of course. You got to buy fuel and get yourself to where you need to be, but it doesn't cost a ridiculous amount of money to get on the road and just see what's going on in this country, see what the early settlers have done, and see what the people long before us in the 40s, 50s, and 60s have done. My wife and I, again, and another couple that we are friends with, a couple of years ago, flew out to Las Vegas, rented some motorcycles, and rode to the Grand Canyon. We had the opportunity to ride motorcycles on the original Route 66, as well as the new Route 66, the one that's used now. It was an amazing experience. except for the 10 minutes of hail that we got while we were rolling down the highway. But it really makes you take a step back and appreciate the land in which you chose to defend. And so if you're a person who hasn't had the opportunity or haven't taken the opportunity to move around this country and see some of the things that are out there to be seen, I encourage you to do so. And it kind of really puts a lot of things into perspective, because what you're not going to get while out doing these things, you're not going to get the mainstream media breathing down your throat and shoving whatever bullshit message for the day they have down your throat. You're not going to get a whole ton of toxic people that want to throw narratives at you or persecute you for your beliefs. Usually, you run into some pretty interesting people. You run into people who have some pretty interesting life experience. And so the cool thing about going to national parks, taking a road trip here and there, going through small towns, seeing the countryside, is that you really kind of end up meeting people who share your belief system, who share the things in which you enjoy, and you have something in common almost right away. Some of those, you know how sometimes when you meet people, there's unspoken words, but you just kind of know that you're in the same camp with whatever the context of that conversation might be. And it really also kind of makes you think that all the things that we see on TV and we read on the internet, and if you still read a paper that you see in the paper, are not as true as they want you to believe. It makes you think, how could it be? How could all of this insane stuff be true when in 4 days I met about 13 people from all different walks of life, from different areas of this country, that don't, in my opinion, in the short conversations, don't seem to really have a whole lot of difference of opinion than I have. I mean, of course, you're going to always have to agree to disagree about things, or not agree to disagree and just disagree and argue it out, or whatever the case may be. But I think that there's a lot of folks around this country that are not necessarily wanting to be stuck at home all the time, and they want to get out and move around, but they also don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of shitheads. And so they get outside. They go to these places and they hike. And I'll be 100% honest with you here. Me and hiking are not friends. But I certainly enjoy being out in the wilderness to a certain extent. And like, the air smells different. The sun feels different. Your perspective on the world around you is just different. And so it also helps you to kind of just bring yourself back into like a center position and be grounded, even if it's just for a little bit. Because unfortunately, we all have to go home. and get back to the daily grind, whatever that is for you. And all these great experiences, they must come to an end at some point. But there's nothing that says that we can't do them again later. But it's an amazing experience, and it's amazing feeling to stand, for example, at the top of the road to the sun at Glacier National Park. It really, to be quite honest, at the risk of sounding a little cheesy, it really kind of made me proud to look over everything the light touches is your kingdom, right? That was kind of the line that went through my head from Lion King. Not that it's my kingdom, but the United States of America belongs to Americans. It belongs to us. We've fought for it. We've bled for it. We've sweat for it. And many have died for it. And so as I was standing there, and to a certain respect being kind of overtaken a little bit with a little bit of emotion, it made me proud. There's a lot of people that will never get to see that. And that's unfortunate. But there's a lot of things in this country that a lot of people will never get to see in person. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to fight our balls off to protect it. But where the trouble comes in is that seemingly at every turn, there's something or somebody trying to take that away from us. The population of people, Americans in this country, that deserve to enjoy all that and hold it dear and close to their chest. Because it belongs to you. And it's unfortunate that it seemingly is trying to be taken away from us for whatever reason, in whatever way. But I challenge you. Plan a road trip, even if it's just for a weekend. It's hard to believe that any of us that live in this country can't travel 4 or 5 hours from home and see something. Some kind of monument, some kind of anomaly, some kind of national park, some kind of state park, some kind of national forest, something that belongs to just us. And I'll openly admit, I got a lot to see myself. I have a lot to do if I hope to see half of it before my time here is over. But I mean, what do we... The real question is, what are we really looking to keep safe, to keep close to our chest? What are we hoping to defend against? What is the threat? It's easy to say we have all these great things, and for some reason, the powers that be want to take it away from us. But But what is that threat? And that is the frustrating part about it for me, is because the threat seems to be all around us. The threat seems to be at home in our neighborhoods, and you can go from there all the way up to the White House. You go all the way up to the international community. I have a hard time understanding why we can't just be left the hell alone to live our lives. Why is it everything that's important to Americans has to at some point be called into question, whether or not we get to keep it, whether or not we deserve it? We didn't do anything. Some would say that we have a tyrannical government that doesn't care about you, doesn't care about me, doesn't care about these things in which we're talking about today. They don't care about any of it. They care about their own money, their own power, their own control, their own well-being, and then taking care of their buddies or their family. Everyone else can go to hell. And so I get it to a certain extent, but the problem here is that these folks are put in a position for a reason. These folks are put in a position to take care of business for us. And so now it's not the same. It's not the same at all. And meanwhile, while this supposed tyrannical destruction of everything we've ever been taught, everything that's ever been good in our country, allegedly is not what we've known our whole lives. Is it possible that it's true? That it's all junk? Yeah, it's possible. Is it hard to stomach? Yeah, it's hard to stomach. But as it pertains to the men and women who chose to fight for this country, whether it was under false pretense or not, in my opinion, is not important. The idea that so many chose to sacrifice for this land, for this country, for these ideas is what is important. If we were lied to our whole lives about our history and about our government and our banking system and our school boards and everything around us, if everything around us someday proved to be fake, it's a pretty shitty feeling. But as it pertains to veterans, I think it would still be a shitty feeling, but I also think that all these things that we always talk about are still relevant because these people chose to join the military and serve based on the idea of America, the idea of freedom, the idea of democracy, the idea of a pursuit of happiness. The American dream. And so if someday, for whatever reason, that American dream proves to be a lie, well, I think that we all have some soul searching to do about how to handle that and how to feel about that. And I think there's only a couple ways you can accept it and figure out a new normal, or you can fight it. And I guess neither one of those reactions is wrong. I mean, who's going to tell you you're wrong? Well, I take that back. I'm sure a lot of people will tell you that you're wrong, no matter what you choose. But at the end of the day, the men and women who chose to wear a uniform did so of free will and did so based on the ideas that we've all been taught. So when we talk about the way that veterans get care at the VA, when we talk about the way that veterans are killing themselves at alarming rates, when we talk about all these issues, financial literacy, education benefits, disability, health care, all these things, in my opinion, it's all still relevant. They didn't choose to join knowing that they were being lied to, if it is a lie. So why should they have to sacrifice again? And so, I don't know, this all seems kind of confusing, and all I really wanted to do was talk to you about how beautiful our country is, and that it's worth fighting for. Every drop of sweat, and every ache and pain, and multiple drops of blood. In those times when you're standing there and you're gazing upon these sights, or you're partaking in like a tour of sorts. My wife, for example, and her girlfriends, they like to travel around the country to these amazing places and do these hikes in these beautiful parts of our country. They did one down in some canyon in water or something, and I think it was in New Mexico or something like that. California, maybe, I don't remember, Nevada. But it was amazing. It was beautiful. The pictures were great. When you're standing there looking at these things or you're partaking in them, everything you've ever sacrificed, most things you've ever sacrificed, at that particular moment, make you think, well, right now, this is all worth it. And I'm telling you, it gives a person a sense of pride and a sense of accomplishment. Even though the job's not done, even though we are constantly still under infiltration at our borders, we are constantly still being taken advantage of, as many would say, by our government. We're just paying more money and more money and more money as time goes on. We're being taken advantage of. So what do we do? The answer is not, however, to go travel the countryside and see all these beautiful things and then hope that it's going to be solved, because we all know that that's not going to happen. But I think one thing that we can start doing is just paying more attention and asking more questions. Because it would be a real shame if we got to a point where all these beautiful things and experiences were gone. And then what? And what do we have? What do we have to talk up about our country? Like when you meet foreigners that have never been to America, right? If you meet, let's say you meet a couple from Spain. Oh yeah, it's our first time in America, and what do you think we should go see? Anything in the country? What do you think we should go see? Well, there's the Grand Canyon, there's the Statue of Liberty, there's the London Bridge in Lake Havasu. That's pretty cool. There's all these national parks all over the place. There's some pretty awesome baseball stadiums. There's all kinds of cool things to see. The Mount Rushmore, there's some really cool historic landmarks. There's some awesome museums around this country. If you're into American history, there's a lot of stuff. But what if that stuff was gone? Is our history and our monuments, our what else do you call them? Our attractions, let's say. Are they worth our protection? Are they worth being saved? Are they worth being updated? Are they worth being repaired if they need it? I think so. And so I guess I really don't know why. I guess I really don't know why I chose to sit here today and talk to you about how beautiful our country is. But I can tell you that just a few days ago, when I was on my Harley Davidson, which is American built, well, they say that, and then we were riding through northern Wisconsin and the UP, and you pull up to places like Lake Superior, the southern shore of Lake Superior. You're kind of in the woods, and then you break out, and there was a there was a marina there. And you turn this corner, and then boom, there it is. Man, it was beautiful. And it's ours. It belongs to this country. Now, many people will tell you, and they'll tell me, I'm sure, in the comments or in person or whatever, that there is a ton of amazing things to see all over the world. And I don't doubt that at all. I'm sure there is. But they're not ours. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that whoever they belong to, they allow us to travel there and see them and partake. Because I think it's important. I think all this history is important. I think that all this learning that we can do is important. I don't know. There's a lot of people that say all of it's a lie and all of it's fake. And maybe they're right. But I'm the type of person that until there is concrete evidence and proof, the jury's still out for me. We can all say whatever we want, but until we know the truth, it's not worth arguing about. Which, side note, this is my whole argument for the flat earther people. Right? And just real quick, I'll get off into this weed real fast, and then I'll come back to the main road. Flat earthers will tell you that there's no way possible. No way possible that our planet is a ball or a sphere or anything else. It's got to be flat. It's got to be a plate, and there's some secret death ray or something in Antarctica. Maybe they're right. But the truth of the matter is that nobody really knows. Nobody that we know really knows. Nobody that I know. And I don't know that there's anybody that I know who knows. Maybe there is. But the argument is that nobody's ever been to space. Every picture we have from space is CGI. The moon landing is fake. Spacewalks are fake. The space station and the cosmonauts and all that is not real. And maybe that's true. But nobody really knows for sure. And so if the argument is nobody's been up there, but nobody knows that it's flat or round. And so you can put as many scientists and as many researchers and YouTubers with long hair and big long beards that have all the answers. They can all say whatever they want, but the fact of the matter is that nobody's been there. So if that's true and nobody's been up there, then how does anybody know? For all we know, the planet Earth is a big pentagon or a big triangle, pyramid or something. Maybe it's a big squiggly line or a halo like in that video game. Who knows? So anyway, back to the topic. That's just my take on the whole flat earth thing, and I really don't ever like to get in the conversation because I think it's stupid. But here at home in the United States of America, we have a ton of national treasures. If you haven't seen them, please make an effort to see a couple or one. Do the research on them. Things like one of the top ones on my list for sure is Gettysburg. I want to go to Gettysburg really bad. I want to see it. I want to be there. I want to walk on the field. I think it'd be heavy, but I think it's necessary. The amount of people that fought on this land to make it what it was, even if they were wrong, it's an astounding number. My father always told me, one of the things that you can never forget is where you came from. Don't ever forget your history as best you can. If you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you came from, there's a good chance you're going to repeat any of that negative shit that happened in your past. So don't ever forget where we came from. Sure, there's a lot of things in our history that we should not be proud of. But there's also a lot of things we should be. And I think that that's part of what's missing around this country these days. But who am I, right? Who am I to tell anybody how to feel or act or interpret what they see around them? But I'll promise you one thing. If you get yourself to some of these places and calm your mind and just take it in for what it is and be present, I think that you'll find some peace. You'll find value for sure in that experience. And it might also make you prideful. The one thing I can promise you is that you won't hate it. You're not going to go to any of these places and be pissed off that you're there. I don't think so anyway. So I know that today is kind of slow-paced and somber, but these things really kind of just hit me when I was on my bike and we were doing this ride, man. I got to tell you, it's a pretty amazing feeling. So get out, folks. If you don't do it now, and if you haven't or you used to and you don't do it and try it, just do one little road trip, see how it goes. Or or fly if you wanna. But I think that everybody in this country can travel 3 or 4 hours and see something cool if you haven't already. And maybe that'll spark you to want to go a little further next time and go a little further the time after that. Learn about where we came from, our good and our bad. Don't forget who we are. And don't listen to everybody else from the outside talking into your ear. Make up your own decision. Do your own research. Figure it out for yourself. And if you come to the same conclusion, then okay. No problem. Then you come to the same conclusion, and that's okay. But don't just take anybody's word for it. Don't take my word for it that it's beautiful and it's an awesome experience and it'll bring you some pride in your home. Go check it out. Maybe it won't, but at least you tried. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. Stay tuned. I realize that our frequency of shows has kind of gone down a little bit. We're trying to deal with a studio move, and so we're going to get that all worked out and get back to our normal frequency of recording and make sure that we're not ripping you guys off. There's a lot to talk about and a lot of things to put out into the universe and hopefully bring some good to our community and to the lives of veterans all over this country. That is our goal. And finally, if you haven't and you enjoy the content that we're giving you, please consider dropping us a like and a subscribe on our YouTube page here. It's down here. There's a button down here somewhere. We really would appreciate it. Help us grow this channel. We have a lot of ideas and a lot of great things that we can do with this platform, but we have to build it. And so those likes and subscribes go a lot further than you can imagine for us. So again, I appreciate you being here. We'll see you all next week. Have a great evening. Good night.